Hello everyone, my name is Victor and I just wanted to do a quick video about the Hebrew New Testament. So if you haven't been told yet or have heard from anyone, but very recently within the last few years has the New Testament manuscripts in Hebrew been discovered. You can first look it up from Shabbat Night Live, which goes through the man who actually found them first. His name is Miles Jones. I've had the honor of having him over at my congregation and actually talking with him this last December and last December, but he had only printed out, I believe, the Epistle of James in Hebrew and English, and he was currently working on the book of Revelation. However, there are more people that are getting access to these documents, and one of them is on HebrewGospels.com, which has Matthew, Mark, John, James, and Revelation translated from the Hebrew, which you can look up and download as free PDFs. The only one they haven't translated yet, and it's been about almost 2 years, is the Gospel of Luke. There is also another man by the name of Dr. Al Garza, and he has been the biggest producer of the translations, which I want to show you. So if you go on Amazon, this is the book of Romans by Dr. Al Garza. This is the book of Hebrews by Dr. Al Garza. These are Paul's letters, some of Paul's letters, Galatians through Philemon by Dr. Al Garza. And he just finished James to Revelation. He has, I believe, Mark and John done, and he is currently working on translating Matthew and Luke and Acts. Those are the last 3 books he has to translate. And so I wanted to just quickly give them their spot, as they are the ones currently working on the project and are the ones that have started the project. So if you haven't heard of Dr. Al Garza, in the first few pages of, oh, that's Miles Jones. In the first few pages, he gives the manuscripts from the libraries that the book is actually translated from. And so this is the book of Hebrews. So these are the 6 manuscripts that he used to translate. Romans has 7. Galatians through Philemon has 7. John has 11. And so all of them are given. Now the story is told by Miles Jones, as he is the one that originally discovered them. In the beginning, there were about 2 manuscripts for every New Testament book, and 4 for the Gospel of John, and 3 for the rest of the synoptics. But now that it's been more time, there's at least 6 per New Testament book. And if you look it up, there's 11 for the book of John, and the others have variations. So there's at least 6 different manuscripts per New Testament book. Now I want to talk about the importance of the Hebrew New Testament being originally in Hebrew. I am not a Hebrew scholar. However, I am practicing my Hebrew through my Hebrew primer book. Just also following online and memorizing every word that I can, and certain ministries that I follow that are trying to teach the average person to at least read 1,000 or so words for the Bible to memorize. So I am by no means an expert, but I want to at least share some of the stuff that I've discovered and have had help in discovering as well. Number one, the reason to get any of these books is because of the controversial verses that we have to talk about when we are a Messianic or a Torah observant Christian, right? Which I am, given the fact that a lot of people do not follow the Torah because they say that the New Testament explicitly says that. And sometimes it's hard when we get verses from like the book of Hebrews to counter that, or at least to interpret it another way. So part of the importance of these documents is that the Greek changed some of the controversial verses that are misunderstood. So from the book of Hebrews 8, verse 13, and we know how this reads in the Greek, right? It says that there is a new covenant and that the old covenant is obsolete, right? In this verse, it does not say that. Here's how it reads in the English. Verse 13 of Hebrews chapter 8, Hebrew New Testament. In that he said, renewed, he has made the first worn out. Now that which is worn out and grown old is ready for renewal. So, see, the old covenant is not done away with or obsolete. And when they say that, they include the Torah. I also want to go to another verse in chapter 7. Chapter 7, verse 12. For the priesthood being renewed, there is made a necessity, a renewal also of the Torah. So we know in the Greek it says, for there is a change in the priesthood, therefore there is a change in the law. Some people have suggested transfer, right? But here in the Hebrew we have the priesthood is being renewed, therefore there is a renewal also of the Torah. So these are controversial verses that actually are corrected in the Hebrew that would back up a lot of us that are part of the Hebrew roots. I have the book of Romans right here. So the English for Dr. Al Garza's books are not always translated correctly. Only because if you can read Hebrew, it's better that you read Hebrew because you won't catch certain things like this. So in Romans chapter 6, verse 14, for sin will not have dominion over you, for you are not under the Torah, but under grace, right? You are not under the law, you are under grace. However, in the Hebrew, there's some words here that he didn't translate. So it says, vehachet lo yistarer alechem ki ein enchaim tachat yad ha-Torah ki'im tachat yad Torat chesed, or chesed for grace. For the Hebrew speakers, basically he left out the word under the hand. Under the hand of the Torah and under the hand of grace is how it reads. So that's why I say that some of the English is not exact all the time, and it's not that bad. So, you know, I get it. It's one man translating, and he funds all of his own books through his own job or career or however he does it. Dr. Al Garza. So he does need donations, but I believe you can look him up too. He has his own YouTube channel and he talks about these very briefly. I think he's just a very busy man, so he can't go through everything, but he does plan on printing out all the New Testament books pretty much separately, like you see, But when that's over, he wants to do a second edition where he has the entire New Testament in one book. So it'd probably be, this fat. And then I believe he said a third edition would be to include the concordance numbers for each word. And it's been very fascinating doing word searches. Seeing the words in the Hebrew and how it connects back to the Old Testament has been pretty fascinating. But also, there are entirely different changes. When you get the Galatians one, this one is probably the one you want to get to study the most, because it goes through all of Paul's letters. Most of Paul's letters. But you know how a lot of people are against Paul. They throw him out. They call him a hypocrite. They say that he wrote half his books, the true Paul, and the rest are forgeries. And that Paul tells us to break the commandments. And he probably broke them himself, right? So actually having the letters in the Hebrew, you can see how he uses, you can see the originality of it, given that a lot of the words in Hebrew kind of like act like puns and they rhyme a bit, but also that they're Hebrew in nature. So one of the verses that I found interesting, and I had to confirm this with somebody that I know, but in 1 Timothy chapter 4, the one about all foods are created to be eaten, as people like to use that verse. In the Hebrew, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 5, for it is sanctified by the word of Elohim and prayer. The word for prayer is uverchato. So, and the v'chafta. And now if you know what that is, that's the blessing after the meal. I believe it's Deuteronomy 8, where we pray after we eat, not before we eat, but after we are filled. It's called the v'chafta prayer, right? It's the blessing. So the Greek does translate it correctly. It really does. It's sanctified by the word of God in prayer. Even though here it's not talking about unclean food being eaten, but that's not what I want to focus on. I want to show the originality of the verse being founded in the Hebrew, not the Greek. And the word that the chafta is used is why. I forget who it is, but Dr. Al Garza does discuss, I believe it's Clement, that tells us that Paul's letters were originally Hebrew written. So, here, prayer is not tefillah like it's supposed to be in the Hebrew. It's bechafta. So, again, it's the perception. When you know this, you know that you can translate it as prayer, but it's the blessing after you eat. That's the prayer. So it's a very specific Hebrew interpretation of prayer, not just prayer, praying for your food, but praying for your food after, according to the Torah. So that's one of the fascinating verses. There's so much in here. I don't want to go through it all, but I did want to go through probably another important one, which is found in 2 Timothy chapter 4, and you can compare this to the Greek. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. Here it is in the Hebrew. Proclaim the word, be ready in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering, according to the words of the Torah. A commandment to use the Torah. Okay, New Testament. And the Hebrew, right? Devar besorato, the word, the gospel, basically. Proclaim the word, proclaim the good news, the gospel. According to the words of the Torah. Lefi chol divrei ha-Torah. is how it reads. Again, in Titus chapter 1, verse 9. He must hold firmly to the truth according to the Torah, so he can both encourage by the Torah that is sound and convict those who speak against us. So the Torah, the law, is spoken of twice in here, to be used according to and to be encouraged from it. Right? A good minister. We lose this in the Greek. It's completely different. So again, the originality of the Hebrew. Yes, so if I don't want to go through Galatians, but pretty much get this copy of the New Testament to go over most of, or all of, the controversial verses that go against the messianic interpretation of following the Messiah and following the Torah, the commandments of God, the law of Moses, the law of Christ, is also in here. It's what is it? How does it read? Chatorat, something Mashiach. So I don't believe there is a different law of Christ, like a law of Moses type, but that's not what I'm here to get into. I'm just here to spread the word for the Hebrew New Testament. I gave Dr. Miles Jones, I believe, I don't want to butcher their name, but it's the Rensburgs brothers on the HebrewGospels.com. They also have a YouTube channel. And Dr. Al Garza, right? He's the one producing the actual books. Miles Jones only produced James so far. You could buy that on his website, thewritingofgod.com. He also has some videos on how the mark of the, is it the mark of the beast or the mark of God is the Tav, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, given to Ezekiel when he said mark them on their foreheads, right? And it's actually a cross because it's the Paleo Tav, but it's because of the Hebrew revelation that he was able to get this linking the Song of the 144,000 with I believe it's 1 Corinthians 14 or 2 Corinthians 11, somewhere around there, I forget. He has the video on there though, and so like I said, it proves the originality of the New Testament being in Hebrew, because you can compare what Paul is saying in Hebrew to what David says in the Psalms, and trace it all the way back to Ezekiel with Revelation. So again, I'm just here to spread the word. Many people, at least some people that I've seen talk about this, really are against it, and I don't understand why. The texts speak for themselves. If you just don't want to hear it, then you don't want to hear it. It's pretty sad to have a closed mind like that when we have something this valuable that has survived and proves its authenticity by how Hebrew it is in the writing it contains. But I believe that this word should be spread for those that are studying the Hebrew, for those that know Hebrew speakers, perhaps people in Judaism, people that deny the Messiah, people that deny Paul in the Hebrew roots. Most of these guys don't know anything but a few Hebrew words. They don't know how to read a sentence, but they'll have a collection of 50 plus Hebrew words in their head, but never how to read them in a sentence, and only using the concordance, not actually seeing how they are written in a sentence in the Bible, and know how to pronounce it So for those that are doing that, for those that are studying that, because like I said, the English is not translated correctly all the time. So only if you have some kind of Hebrew grammar in your memory where you can spot, you can be like, I want to look at this verse, and then you'll be like, there's something there I need to dig deeper on, and then you'll find it. So again, just spreading the word. This video is probably not going to do it that much justice, but I do hope that everyone watching would at least buy Dr. Al Garza's translation out of curiosity, and really just digging deeper and seeking the Father on this issue. One of the other interesting things, I guess I'll just say it real quick, was in 2 Thessalonians talking about the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah. It calls him in verse 2, Abaddon, son of destruction, Ben Abaddon. So for those of us that know the New Testament, that should ring a bell. That's in Revelation 9:11 or 19:11. The son of destruction, it gives you the Greek name Apollyon, and then it says, but in the Hebrew tongue he's known as Abaddon. So there's the link for you in the Hebrew because of Paul. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this to be a blessing and that you would buy the books. I am not advocating for them, but this is for giving honor to God for actually preserving the Hebrew. For those of us that care enough to pay a price and learn something different other than the narrative that we've believed for all this time. So if that's you, look up Dr. Al Garza, look up Miles Jones, the Rensburgs. You can read their free Hebrew copies online and get the PDFs. They only have the English for you though, they won't give you the Hebrew. But these books come with English and Hebrew. Thank you, and I bid you all peace and shalom and grace in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Shalom.
Sometimes the storm will flood your life, but the Holy Spirit and your relationship with God will not let you drown. Greater is He that's in me. He died to save you. He's your permanent lifeguard. I'll never turn back, swimming through the storms, body looking tired, heart feeling warm, but I'm sworn in, I'll never leave. I'll never let this world get the best of me. I'm 100, nothing less of me. He died, so He gon' get the best of me. I read my word, pray daily. Only thing that keep my mind from going crazy in this cold world. This cold world we live in. Everybody dirty, it's a pig's pen. Trials and tribulations at your wit's end. So just give in to His love. His mercy come from above. And crucify who you was. He'll be better than what you think of.